Hello everybody, today is December 21st, 2020, coming to you from New York City. I would like to talk a little bit about my 4185A VNA, changes that I've made to it, and where I'm planning to go with it. And I would like to say that this is a beautiful unit. I've connected it to my GPS 10 megahertz frequency standard, and it just works beautiful. I can't say enough about it. It's the best money I ever spent, and I've made some changes to it so it performs better, and I would like to discuss that. By the way, there will be no video. It's mostly pictures, but well, maybe there'll be video. I don't know. All right, here we go. Okay, as you can see from the picture, that the 4185A is connected to the external reference source. You see the external reference light on right underneath the main screen, and it is also connected to it's connected to one 8503A S parameter test set, but I have two of those units. Those units are rated 500 kilohertz to 1.3 gigahertz. Okay, that's a lot more than this unit, that the VNA is capable of. We're only going up to 500 megahertz with a 4185A, but this is a really nice S parameter test set to use. Now, I will go into the details of how to set up this system, but first I would like to show some changes that I made to the 4185A. So let's start with that. Okay, so the first thing I did when I purchased this unit on 2005 was I replaced the battery that was in there with a new one. And it still is in there, but I tried to upgrade the battery again last month. But guess what? The battery I bought from DigiKey is way too fat. If I put it in there, I won't be able to put the PC board back into place. So I messed up there. But the old battery, it works just fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. So I'm going to leave it in there right now. I'm going to try to purchase another one, and we'll see what happens. So let's change number one. So EEVBLOG calls this RIFA madness. Yeah, I got one in there. The 4185 has one of those, and they tend to leak and blow up and cause all sorts of trouble. So there's one in there in the power supply board. Okay, so it's time to replace it. So I got a bunch of them from DigiKey, and I'll show you what happened. Okay, so the one on the left is the new one, and the one on the right is the old one that I removed, and I replaced it, and here's what it looks like. And here's a picture of the power supply board with the RIFA capacitor replaced. Looks really nice. All the rest of the components look perfect, so there's no need to replace anything else on that board. That's it. Okay, so here's a picture of the two 8503A S parameter test sets. I connected the VNA to both of them after I calibrated the VNA, of course, and I saw which one had a better response curve, better flat curve I should say, of between 500 kilohertz to 500 megahertz, and I picked the best one, which was the one on top. As you can see, there's a little on and off switch on the right, and a select forward or reverse switch, and it actually has a GPIB connector in the back as well. So I'm using that, and I'll show you what the diagrams are for what the 4185A uses for its own S parameter test set. which you could find on eBay for a ridiculous amount of money. Like, we're talking about, some of them go for like $2,500 for like basically two little devices, right? And I really don't see the point of spending that much money. These 8503As are perfect, okay? So let me show you what the schematics look like. In the discussion that's about to follow, remember that you don't need to change or unplug anything from the S parameter test set. Once you set up the ports, you can use the front panel switch on the S parameter test set, which is forward and reverse, to perform all the calculations. That's it. So in the discussion to follow, I'm going to say you need to connect this port to this port. That's just one time thing, okay? It's once you set that up in the beginning, you're good to go. All right, you don't need to make any more changes. I just want to make that clear. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about how to take measurements using the 4185A and the 8503 S parameter test set. Okay, so as you can see in this picture, on the left you have the 4195A measurement setup for S parameter testing, and on the right you have the 8503A setup for different S parameter calculations. So first of all, the port names do not exactly match up, okay? So port 1 and port 2, well, fortunately they are named the same. They're exactly the same. On the top of the page you'll see the 8503A front panel setup with all the different ports, and on the left you have the 4185A setup. So if you're going to do testing, you need to be aware of how things should be connected. Okay, so let's go over two examples, and I think after you figure out how I did those, you should be able to set up for the other two parameters. Right now, it's going to do S11 and S21. Okay, so let's start with S11. Okay, for S11 setup, we connect the 4195A S1 port to the RF port on the 8503A, and the R1 port goes into the R port, and the T1 port goes into the A port. As you can see, that what we're really measuring here is the reflection of the device under test, and we just need to plug in a device such as I don't know, a load, an antenna, anything on port 1, and we're basically measuring the reflection of that device. Okay, we just need a single directional bridge, and that's it. Okay, for S21 measurements, we have to connect the device under test will be connected between port 1 and port 2 on the 8503A. So we have to connect it a little bit different. Actually, we set these things up from the configuration menu. When you do a port setup, well, first you select S21 parameter, and then you select the port setup. Okay, and the port setup is T2 over R1. Okay. Here is the display of a S21 parameter with a filter I had. Okay, the yellow line is the response curve, and the B line and the blue line is the phase. Okay, so don't forget, if you're going to do a measurement like this, it's absolutely essential that you first normalize the VNA with a short, open, and load, and I'll show you what those look like for BNC next. Okay, so I do have another S parameter test set, the 35677A, which is only up to 200 megahertz, 100K to 200 megahertz. It needs a little work, which I'm working on it, and I haven't tested its performance, but the fact that it's only rated to 200 megahertz might be a showstopper there. But I am working on fixing this and then publishing the results on all three of my S parameter test sets. Okay, that's it for this guy. Okay, last but not least, I want to talk about the standards that I purchased from SDR Kits. I purchased a BNC open, short, and load, 50 ohms of course, and they were very, very nice. They sent me the 3 standards, and I asked them to translate that into something that the 4185A understands, because the 4185A is a little different, and they were so nice. They actually calculated those values and they sent it back to me. SDR Kits are the best. Really reasonable price for the BNC standards, and I highly recommend them. I'll put a link to their website, but you could see it over here as well, www.sdr-kits.net. Okay, and here's what the calibration screen looks like on the 4185A using the values that I got from SDR Kits. Again, thanks to the guys from SDR Kits. They are the best. Thank you for calculating these values. And that's it. The 4185A is set up. Okay, here's the picture of the actual kit itself as it came. The scratch marks on top are mine. I don't want them to get mixed up with everything else I have, so I just make a little scratch mark so I can identify them. That's it. Okay, and the last word on the 4185A. I would like to replace the CRT with a flat screen. I think I'm working on something that might do that, but I don't know if I have enough time to get something like that going, but I might. So that's one thing. The machine is, like I said, I just love this machine. And I also have a Tech spectrum analyzer that also is having some problems, and I will be working on that. And before I close, I want to re-emphasize that the setup you see right now, with the way the cables are set up between the 4185A and the S parameter test set, only needs to be set up once. Everything else is controlled from the 4185A setup screen with the different things you want to measure, and the forward and reverse switch on the S parameter test set. You only do this once ever. You never have to change it again. Okay, so I need to emphasize that. Okay, that's it. Thank you for watching, and I hope you subscribe to the channel. Thank you.